Pussycat Preacher, one of my most successful documentaries. You shot in war zones. I've worked for National Geographic, and I'm shooting a freaking wedding. How did I get here? The Brazilian government put satellite dishes in all the Indian villages and then started beaming television. And now there's a campaign in Brazil where they're giving all the Indian villages Starlink. There was a long period of time when you'd see young people with phones, but the phones didn't work. They just liked having it. I've been in with Indian tribes, and you're trying to figure out what's your faith. And they start telling you things like, you see the bright lights in the sky? Yeah, that's how the white man got here.
The white man.
Yeah, the white man came through those holes.
Wow. Everything I touched, whether it was YouTube, consulting, everything was just making money. And then obviously what goes up goes down. And you start questioning like, hey, do I have this? Do I have to go get a job?
I've hit that many, many times. And you feel like, shit, I'm a loser. I got to do this job. No, no. The sun will be out again. If you're riding that bike and delivering food, but there's a part of your brain that's still out there, still dreaming, then you're going to get out of it. Hey, Adidas man.
Is it cold over there?
Yeah, it's getting better.
Where are you?
I missed most of it. I was in South America for a month.
Oh wow. What brought you out there?
Fishing videos in the Amazon.
Oh wow. How deep into the Amazon did you go?
Oh, we go pretty deep. This is a thing I do twice a year, and we go from Guyana to Bolivia, all across that Amazon basin. And it's a lot of like, float planes, you fly in and no roads or anything like that. 100 miles to the next light bulb kind of stuff.
Wow, and how long are you out there for, Bill?
Usually one place for a week, 10 days, and then we'll move and go somewhere else. So on this trip, we were in Colombia and then we went to Brazil.
Wow. So you are like just sleeping and showering in the river, sleeping on
No,
the
no,
oh,
no, no, no. They have lodges, and the lodges are pretty rustic. You know what I mean? You can see through the floorboards, down to the ground, and there's not a full wall. It just kind of goes up a little bit, and then a real rudimentary bed. Uh, but the fishing, I don't actually fish myself because I just make the videos. But the fishing's pretty fantastic. Here's an example. See if you can see that. Is it
sort
all
of.
glared out?
It's a bit glared out.
Let's see if I come back a little bit.
Maybe next to your face. Oh yeah, no, it's still glared out. Maybe it's too bright.
It's too bright for this camera. But anyway, I'll send you a picture,
I'd love that. Did you
some other time.
are you filming for someone else or does this go onto your own channel?
I am filming for somebody else at this point. I started doing these videos because it was for my own channel, but basically ran out of species, to go after because I would go after piranha, then I'd go after electric eels, then I would go after these huge fish like the arapaima, peacock bass, payara, also known as the vampire fish. And I put all those on my YouTube channel. But, when you run out of species, there's not much else to do. So the guy I was filming and we sort of started a business to do promotional videos for what he does and for the lodges. And so we've been doing that for, I don't know, 5 years now, something.
Wow, that's amazing. We have like
Yeah, and I love
this.
the Amazon, so it's always great for me to go there. I love being on the river. It's my favorite place in the world, I swear.
Are there a lot of mosquitoes or like is it pretty okay or is it a tough environment?
It can be a tough environment, but I think over the years, for me, when I'm in a natural rainforest that hasn't been denuded, there aren't ranches around, it's pretty much bug free. I mean, yeah, you have examples of bugs, but when you get near these places where it's more savanna or they've cut down a lot of rainforests and put in ranches, then you get all these mosquitoes, no seam, what they call no seams. They're very teeny, but very itchy and painful. And so we have to stay completely covered up in some of these places, with the fishing buff up to here, glasses, your ears are covered, your head's covered, you're covered up to here, full length, and gloves, and just the tippy tops of your fingers coming out. It can get pretty crazy. But other times we're just in shorts and t-shirts and really easy.
Wow. Bill, so how I came across you was I saw your YouTube channel. You have like a giant YouTube channel, a massive following, and you've been creating videos for years. And I wanted to bring on, YouTubers, people who have been sort of doing it for a long time. Because I think a lot of our audience are people that want to grow a YouTube channel or grow a following. And that's sort of how this episode came together.
Oh, okay. Got it.
And then digging into your story, it's like you've done so many cool things, Bill. You've like traveled all around the world. I saw the stuff you did in Africa. So I definitely want, yeah, I have no idea where to start. Maybe you could share with the audience a bit of maybe what you've been focused on over the last, say, 10, 20 years, all the different things you've done. And then from there, we'll dig deeper.
Okay. Well, I went to UCLA Film School back in the 80s. And back then, you didn't have phones with high quality. I mean, you really needed expensive cameras, expensive equipment. So film school was a place you could go to actually learn the craft. And it was different back then. It was old school, as you would say today. But you learn the craft, right? And I came out and I kind of wobbled a bit because I was interested in fiction, played around with developing some feature motion pictures, but eventually ended up in documentaries. And it just fit me a lot better than the feature stuff. And can I show you a couple of things?
I would love to, please.
This is one of my early documentaries. It's called Under the Covers,
Wow.
which we did. It's following these two guys that made all the major album covers of the late 1960s, 1970s. Like they did the Eagles' first album. I could show you a bunch of very famous Doors albums that they did. And so we went around and we interviewed all these people, and they told us a story about the making of the album covers and so forth with these two crazy guys. And one of them, Henry, who was a photographer, he had all this old 8 millimeter sitting in the back of his garage. And it was stuff of, Mick Jagger or Jim Morrison, unseen, so we took all this stuff and we did that. Here's another one of my independent documentaries. It's called Pussycat Preacher. And this was done in California, independently produced by myself. Turned out to be one of my most successful documentaries. It was picked up by Channel 4 in England, and they ran it. They changed the title, of course, and they ran it as The Holy Hottie. And it was a real-time documentation of an ex-stripper who got out of the business, found Jesus, and then started a ministry for strippers. And the story became really intriguing because the strippers and the strip clubs were open for it, but the church wasn't. They didn't want strippers in their church. So, uh, so it became a very interesting, and she's a really interesting character. So, uh, Channel 4, I produced this back in 2006, something like that. Channel 4 picked it up. And it still sells DVDs to this day off of Amazon. It's amazing. I get a few orders a week for it because I guess, somebody writes about it or something and then it takes off again kind of thing. So I have a lot of these. I have another one called Saviors of the Forest. which was shot in Ecuador, and it was about rainforest issues. That got into Sundance, got nominated for a grand jury. It was picked up by National Geographic, and they serialized it for the National Geographic channel. Then I went on to do another film called Rubber Jungle, which was about the murder of a rainforest activist in Brazil named Chico Mendes. And so we tried to solve the mystery of his murder in that one. And at the same time, kind of told the history of rubber in the Amazon, which is a very important, very big deal that's never discussed, but quite an epic history there. So I was doing a lot of that. I was making my own films, and I was working for other people. I would pick up other films to for hire, and one of those was one called Ordinary Joe, who was an ex-Vietnam vet. And when he was in the war, he was a medic. And he came back and he became a roofer in Long Island, New York. And as he got older, he kept thinking about all the great people he had met in Vietnam. And so he started this thing where he would collect money from his neighbors. And once a year, he would go back to Vietnam, mostly North Vietnam, and he would travel around and find these medical issues that were not being tended to correctly. And he would give batches of money to these people so that they could get some medical help. And I took that as a job. I was just kind of I guess, one man band to cover this guy on his journey. I was a cameraman, I was a director, I was basically the producer, and then the real producer was sitting back in Long Island. So they just sort of let me loose and shoot this. And this is my introduction to YouTube because when we were in North Vietnam, circa 2007, 2008, we were off the beaten path. We were not in the tourist ruts at all, in very small villages and staying at very small hotels. And one of these hotels, I was checking out in the morning, and I think the parents had gone to the market to get some food, and they left their daughter at the desk. And I'm trying to check out, and all I see is her head, because the counter was up here. And, I'm just looking at this, and I'm like, right? And she never looked up. So I finally looked around the counter and said, what is this girl doing? And she was watching YouTube videos. And I knew about YouTube, of course. And it just was such an epiphany because I think at that moment I understood the power of that platform that I or anybody else could post something anywhere in the world and this girl in Vietnam could look at it. So it was an instant conversion. I mean, I just, as soon as I got back, I started playing around with YouTube and I took what I call my under the bed videos, which are, videos from long ago and have served no purpose at all. I said, well, I'll put it on YouTube and, 100 people will watch it. And, that's a great thing. So I started doing that. And, these were all my own films and so forth. And I think I posted 72 videos before one of them caught, right? Because I don't think I was necessarily looking to have a big audience. I was just enjoying the platform, me kind of being from the industry, having direct access to an audience was a lot of fun. I didn't have to go through any offices. I didn't need approval. There was no green light, red light, change this edit, do this. It was just like, this is what I do. You can take a look at it. If I made mistakes and you don't like it, whatever, I'm just enjoying this, because I'm a filmmaker at heart, right? So it's very easy for me. So I went about 72 videos and I wasn't really worried about it because I was enjoying it. And then my niece was visiting me for Christmas one time, and we were just looking for something to do. And I said, hey, let's make a YouTube video together. And I forget exactly how it started, but we made a videotape of little cats singing Happy New Year's. I forget how we did it or how it came together. But it was a lot of fun and she giggled a lot. And then we put that on YouTube and the next day I was shocked. It had 300,000 views, right? So it was just that one that suddenly clicked and that kind of gets your antennas up. And so I just went from there and just really didn't have a theme or anything like that where I was focusing in on a particular audience. I was still just making whatever I felt like making. And then if there was somebody to watch it, that was good. But I gradually started moving into doing more nature because that's a lot of my outside work at this point and started doing, animals, things like that. And then it kept building, kept building. And so about, I think 2009, actually got a call from YouTube. Somebody called me. It wasn't an email or anything. They actually called me on the phone. And they were very complimentary of what I was doing. And they said, "We're very interested in you because you make your own material." And I go, "Yeah. Yeah, that's what I do. I make it." And they said, "Well, a lot of people on YouTube, they're just copying stuff. So we're looking for people that make original content. And we're starting something called the partnership program where we will provide ads and you provide the content. And then we split it. I forget what it was, 40, 60. And I don't even know who got what, whether they got 60 or I got 40 or what. But I was being approached a lot at that time by these digital platforms that were starting up. They wanted my feature documentaries, they wanted all this stuff. And, a lot of it was, yeah, 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 okay, you and everybody else. And I almost had the same kind of attitude with YouTube. And I said, yeah, yeah, okay, fine, sign me up, whatever. And I noticed that, when I was putting videos up, that these ads started popping up with it. I go, oh, okay. I kind of get it. I see what they're doing. And then they sent me a check, a paper check in the mail. And I was like, oh, this is for real. Okay. So that kind of cemented our relationship. And I think I started taking it a little bit more seriously. And that's when I really started branching out. And I started doing Amazon River Monsters, which is where we started our conversation about going to the Amazon and filming these exotic fish and then coming back. I did another one in Brazil called Animal Soldiers, which I thought was a great show. I mean, for me, and this were a group of soldiers who occupy these towns in Brazil that are near the jungle or the rainforest. And as the town expands, the animals come into the city. So you get, 10-foot anaconda in somebody's garden. All these exotic birds, caiman, turtles, they get into the city. And so this troop of soldiers, their job is to rescue these things. They take it through a facility they have where the veterinarians check out the animals and make sure they're okay. And once they're deemed to be okay, they have places they go to return them to the jungle. And it was like, we got to do a show about this. So we did a show about that. And that was very successful. And then I noticed that my audience was obviously young and they were very curious about some of the stuff I was making, whether it was real or fake. And the comments was always full of, that's real, that's fake, no, that's real, no, it's fake. Oh, come on, that's so fake. No, 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 no. I said, all right, well, look, if this is what you guys are into, why don't we just make a show called Real or Fake? Right. And then you can send me stuff that you don't know. And I will do my best to do research. And then I started up a little Facebook group called the Chewy Piranhas. And they would do a lot of the research. And we would get down to these, pictures of Bigfoot, whether, Slender Man is real, Mothman, all these sort of mythical creatures that people were curious about. So I ended up making, and that series just took over the channel, and it became the main focus of the channel for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. That's all I did. I just made real or fake videos. And it was hard to get out and do anything else. People would call me, hey, we got this documentary. I was like, man, I'm so busy with this channel. And I'm in partnership with YouTube. And, I got to pay attention to what I'm doing here, and I can't, unfortunately, do this other stuff. But it's not a problem because I'm making money doing this. So, so a lot of people were like, oh, I know it. One guy said to me, he goes, You're kind of going backward in your career. Why are you going to YouTube instead of, like, trying to be on HBO or something like that? And I really didn't have an answer. I just said, I love this platform, and it makes me feel good, and everything feels right about what I'm doing this because not because I think it's the future or anything like that. It just feels right. I'm going to do this. Very, very strong instinctual feeling that YouTube was a good place to be. And I think I was right because, eventually, I mean, YouTube ate everything. I'm still a YouTube person, and I watch almost exclusively YouTube when I consume media because it's got all the news, it's got movies, it's got all this stuff. And you can see, if you're a viewer, how powerful the platform has begun because a lot of the legacy cable news and so forth, they have to like produce their show and then put it on YouTube. Because, and you can see the future. They're eventually going to drop their live broadcast, and their live broadcast will be on YouTube, type of thing. So in the end, I think my instincts were right. It was the right place to be. And the Real or Fake show, it just took over everything. I think I made 400 episodes of Real or Fake, nonstop, every week, every Friday, bang, 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 bang. And I think the regularity of that, my presence in the show, just really, really gathered that audience over time. I think when I started Real or Fake, I probably had 10,000 subscribers. And over the next 2 or 3 years, the Real or Fake show took my subscriber base to 2.6 million. And the videos were, you know, getting a lot of views. And, it was a successful show because it kind of hit that place where I sensed from my audience that there really was an issue with what's real or what's fake in their world. And this is pre-AI, especially if you're younger, you really have a hard time finding your way through social media and really understanding what is this fake? Is that real? Type of thing. So I noticed they also all had sort of this existential fear of the earth being destroyed, like the world is going away. We're all going to die because there's these people that are constantly making these like asteroid headed towards Earth, nuclear war, giant volcanoes, alien invasions. I mean, just you name it. There's all these like huge existential threats. And when you're a young person, yeah, I can see you being a little bit overwhelmed. So I also, in addition to being real fake, I try to become this calming voice of saying, I looked it up. The asteroid's going to miss us by hundreds of thousands of miles. You have nothing to worry about. So don't forget to, put your wish list together for your Christmas presents because, we're all going to be here. And so it was a great time. It really was. It was a very enjoyable part of my career, making these videos, the real or fake videos. So now, do you want to talk about the decline of Bill's channel?
Yeah, tell me about when did it peak, and then what happened afterwards? Yeah, that'd be I'm definitely curious.
Yeah, it peaked around between, I haven't really looked it up. I would say between 2012 and 2015.
Hmm.
And I was really on my game and I was doing it. But the audience was very young and something strange happened. And that is this law came in and it was the child online, the Children's Online Protection Act, because in the early days of the internet, young people had access to whatever was on the internet, and people were also targeting them with ads. So this law was passed to protect the kids from all that, and then YouTube had to corral the kids off into an area where they couldn't be targeted with ads. It would just be, sort of random ads and so forth. And I guess that was lucrative for some people because, they really do children's programming and that they're doing the ABCs and stuff like that, that parents can turn on to their kids. But my kids are like, by this time, they're between anywhere from 9 to 18. That was kind of where my audience was. And so I really couldn't afford to become a kids channel, right? So at that time, you literally had to go to a lawyer and have a lawyer review your channel, and the lawyer would basically give you an opinion whether you are a kids channel or not. And once you had that under your belt, it wasn't a requirement, but you felt a lot better about going back to YouTube and saying, this is not a children's channel, right? And having them come back to you going, well, that's obviously false. So you're now banned from YouTube, right? No, no, I got this lawyer. Look, I went to this lawyer and the lawyer, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't say anything. They just went, okay, fine, right? I said, okay. And then I kept going. But what happens over the long run is that my audience comes to me at a younger age. They all come in at 7, 8, and then they stick around to about 18. And then they obviously have a much better faculty for the real or fake stuff. And, the world changes and they move on. They find other people to watch. So I wasn't getting my younger people, right? I wasn't being introduced to young people. They were all fenced off. So my channel was just going with the age group as they aged. There was no new customers, so to speak, to buy my stuff or to watch my stuff. And so that created a situation where as the older ones left, the numbers, the viewing started going down. And so when you're in that situation, you have to work doubly hard to try to keep your viewing stats up, right? And then it becomes a chore, and then the fun stopped. And I kept going as long as I can, but eventually it just became too much of a chore. And I knew I was getting burned out and I had to step back from it. So I just got to a point where I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, but I know I needed to step back. And so I did. I kind of stepped back and went off and just wrote a novel because I think writing a novel was something that I could disappear into and get rid of all the YouTube stress and so forth. So at this point, if you go there, you'll see me talking about my novel. You'll see me doing different things. But all the comments are, when are you going to do real or fake again? When are you going to do real or fake again? So that's kind of where I'm at now. I want to, it's a small audience and I love them because they've been with me forever. And they're, if you look at the comments, a lot of them are like, I grew up with you, man. You can't just disappear. So I'm trying to, I'm no longer, I would say, interested in growing my channel. I'm more interested in this point in maintaining my relationship with that core audience and delivering some material to them, but at the same time trying to get them to see me as, look, I do other stuff, right? I make these fishing videos in the Amazon, but they're promotional videos. If you want to look at them, I'll show you the promotional video. If I see a real or fake on the road, I could do something about that. But I'm doing other things. I'm writing books and, I'm doing stuff that my instincts, again, are saying, that's the place to be. So I'm just finishing up my second novel now and, still keeping a foot in video and documentary filmmaking. And the channel is still there. It still has people watching it, but it's not the channel it used to be, which was very contemporary, very, with a big audience, and so forth. I'm kind of back to like trying to find things that I do that bring me joy in YouTube again, because I lost that joy. It just became a grind. And when you get into a grind, you're going to burn out, especially if you're a lone operator like me. I was a one-man channel. I might have graduated at two people for about 2.5 weeks, but it was always basically a one-man channel. So, if you're doing one of these channels by yourself and you're trying to keep up with everything, even with the skills that I had, because I have all these filmmaking skills, it's still a huge chore every week to on Monday to be back at the bottom of that mountain. And you got to go all the way to the top of the mountain by Friday at 5 o'clock. And then you get a day off, and then Sunday you got to start thinking about what you're going to do on Monday again. So that's kind of where it's at. So I hope my story was somewhat coherent.
What a beautiful story, Bill. When, so it peaked around, was it 2012, 2013? Is that sort of when it was?
Yeah,
Yeah,
between
between.
2012 and 2015, I think I was at my peak. It doesn't just, peak and drop. It peaked and it was running along at this high level for a couple of years. And that was a lot of fun because, there were a lot of viewers and I was still into it. And uh, we kind of hit our stride on, there was a lot of good real or fake material out there because there are people coming up with all these monsters and people didn't understand, whether it was a real monster or whether it was a fake monster. So and it was very educational for me because I don't know anything about all this stuff. I mean, I was not a fan of Freddy Fazbear, but I learned a lot about Freddy Fazbear's Pizza because a lot of people thought there was a real Freddy Fazbear's Pizza out there. Uh, so it was very educational and a lot of fun. And like I said, I loved the audience because they were so enthusiastic too.
Wow. And then from 2015, how long did you keep doing it during that sort of phase of it slowly declining, you having to put in twice as much work to get the same results?
I would say that I started feeling it around 2017, where, between 2012 and 2017, there were definitely all the views you needed and more to sustain the channel. Because you have advertisers that come in and they want you to just talk about their product and all that kind of stuff, but they like to see big numbers, right? They get a little disappointed if the video doesn't do very well. So that starts putting pressure on you, but no problem up until about 2017. And then 2017, I would say to 2020, I really start feeling the decline and I stopped accepting outside advertisers because it was too much pressure. They wanted all these views, and I had to come up with something. I had to do the insert for them. Then I had to send it to them. They had to approve it. And all that in addition to the regular production. So I think it was around 2017. I said, I don't want to do that anymore. It's too much pressure. I got to start getting some of this pressure off of me. And then the decline continued into the 2020s. But I was sticking with it. And I would say around 2021 is when I was really starting to look for a way out. because I didn't want to disappoint my audience and they didn't understand the pressure that I was under or the stress I was dealing with. And as far as they were concerned, I wasn't making enough videos. You only make one a week. Why can't you make two a week? And you go, oh my God, I will kill myself if I try to make two a week. So it kind of, slowed down. Then I started skipping weeks, I don't have anything this week, I'll do something next week, or I would do something different kind of thing. And yeah, 2021, I started work on my first novel. And so I was kind of doing that and doing the YouTube at the same time. And gradually, I just got to a point in, I don't know when it was. Somehow I lasted all the way up to maybe early 2024.
Wow.
And I think it was 2024 at some point. I just was like, all right, I need a break. I don't know if I'm quitting. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I need a break. I'm burned. And so I took off and I just made my first real or fake since that time, I think last week, two
Wow.
weeks ago. Because I was posting other things about my novels and my travels and what about real or fake? What about real or fake? So I was in Brazil and I had a real or fake that I just ran across. And so I just literally made it from the field and everybody was like, oh, okay. When's the next one? Kind of thing. So I mean that's where I'm at. I mean it's the channel's still there. I think all channels have a beginning, middle, and end. And mine was, I think, a beautiful run. It's not over. It's still there. It still has 2.5 million subscribers, but it's kind of up to me to find something that I enjoy and not just be a slave to what the audience wants to see, kind of thing. And that's kind of what I'm doing. And it's really been good for me. Really, really been good for me. Because I've, gone off and worked on other documentaries. I did a K-pop documentary last summer, other projects, and it just really rejuvenated me. And when I was doing the real effect, I was actually enjoying myself, and I told my audience, I said, look, I'm really having a good time today making this video. So I will probably make some more real or fakes, but I'm not going to make them on a weekly schedule. I'm sorry, I just can't do that kind of thing. And it's just for a small audience. I'm not looking to get rich off of it. I'm not trying to grow the channel. I'm just like on cruise control. That's basically where I'm at.
Wow. So when it peaked in like 2017 and sort of in 2021 you wanted to sort of quit, but then you sort of pulled through to 2024. At what point during that journey did YouTube no longer become the main source of income?
Uh, I would say probably around 2021, 2022. I stopped really trying to make more money. I was just like, I'm not enjoying this. And there are things that are more important than money. And I really need to pull back and, find my happiness again and, you know, find that big because when I first started YouTube, you could just feel it. You just sit down to do a video. You just felt you were in the right place. And I am doing this. And I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm making, you need to be there, to give you that passion that's going to sustain you through your first 72 videos, that you enjoy it. You enjoy what you're making. And when that stops, the money just becomes secondary because you're like, yeah, I've been around long enough to know it wasn't going to last forever. So I was very careful with the money I did make off of YouTube, socked a lot of it away. I invested like crazy. And so when the gravy train was over, I was in actually pretty good shape. I didn't have to worry because I didn't act foolishly with the money I did make. I understood how precious that money was and how hard it is to make that kind of money. So I was very, 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 very protective of the money and coming from kind of a showbiz background, I knew, it's not forever. So you better, think wisely. And even if you look at big actors in Hollywood, are if you really dig into them, they invest like crazy. They buy restaurants, they buy businesses because they know their stars, someday it's gonna decline. So if my suggestion to your viewers, if you start making money off of YouTube, know it's not going to last forever and plan your life accordingly. Because if you are sustaining yourself off of YouTube, it's your only source of income, it's going to go on for years. And all your other sources of income have probably gone away because you had to neglect them. So think about what's going to happen when your channel goes into decline. You're going to get to the end and say, "Oh crap, what am I going to do now? Do drive Uber?" Because I didn't, I didn't really diversify. I focused on YouTube. It took up all my time, and yeah, I did really good. But it's over. What do I do now? Kind of thing. So that's why you have to understand that and save to know that when you get to that point, which is inevitable for everybody, you're going to be on two solid feet. You're not going to have to freak out because, oh, well, I, bought a studio and I brought in all these people to work for me and, all this exotic equipment and took all these big trips and dolled up my studio and spent all my money. And now I don't, because I thought it was going to keep growing forever. Well, nobody grows forever. I mean, well, maybe what's that guy,
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast. But Mr. Beast, you see how he diversified. He's in what I call the analog world now. I mean, he's starting finance companies, banks. He's involved in Bitcoin and all this type of stuff because he knows, Mr. Beast, like anybody else, is not going to last forever. He's just happened to have very strong legs. William Johnson, is his name William Johnson? He's kind of back from my era, and he used to be extremely popular. And then he ran into some copyright problems, and he disappeared for a while, and then obviously didn't find anything else to do, and he came back to YouTube, and he's doing okay. But he just does the vertical shorts, TikTok, type of stuff. So he's there. Uh, I think Philip DeFranco, he's another one. He's been around forever. He started back before I did, and he's extremely popular. And it just became his thing. But obviously, Philip DeFranco today is not as big as he was, at his peak. So Philip DeFranco, I can guarantee you, was wise with the money he did make off of YouTube to make sure that, he's well set because he followed that path where he decided that this is it. I'm a YouTube guy and I'm going to go YouTube until retirement, right? I'm not gonna quit and do something else type of thing. So, I mean, if you look around, there's a lot of those early people have really grown up and aged, on YouTube, as I have, because I've been on YouTube for a long time, and I'm more of a consumer of YouTube at this point, but it's okay. I still love YouTube.
Wow. And Bill, how did you know what to invest in? Like, did you get into stocks, real estate, Bitcoin, gold? Where did you get that insight from?
Well, I did a lot of research on my own, and here in America, we have a channel called CNBC, which is a business channel. And I started watching the business channel and had no idea what these people were talking about. But I kept watching and kept watching and kept watching. And then I could gradually kind of pull the dots together. And from there, kind of branched out into these people who are, I would say, investment influencers, right? So I would pick one and I go, "Oh, yeah, okay, I'll sign up with you." And you actually got to pay them money. But they turned out to be very educational and they'll teach you how to divvy up your money. So I'm a little bit in real estate. I was very big in stock. I'm not in very few stocks at this point because I don't know what's going on in the world. Uh, so yeah, some gold on top of that, and I have no Bitcoin. I'm not involved in Bitcoin. I just never could get my hands around it, and I sometimes I get close to doing Bitcoin, and then I get busy, and then I kind of forget it. So mostly real estate and stocks, I would say.
Got it. And then with the real estate, are you buying around your neighborhood or are you going like interstate?
Interstate. Uh, yeah, I was living in California, but I live in New Jersey now. I live like on the south end of the New York Harbor, right in there. And being from California, I understood the value of property near the water. And for some reason, New Jersey had it mixed up. The inland properties were more expensive than the stuff on the coast. So I immediately bought into that because that was already too late for California. California was like so expensive already. And then I had a good opportunity on a condo, a rental, a condo I could buy, and then rented it out. And that's been very lucrative for me. And I have a second one now. And those things are, they're not as liquid as your stocks, but if you're a young YouTuber and you're making money, probably one of the best long-term investments you could make is buying rental properties because you've just got decades to have somebody renting it and paying off the mortgage for you. And then when you get old, you get time to retire, you just rent it and you can live off the rental money. You got guaranteed income. It's a great long-term way to invest your money.
Wow. Something that I really liked that you mentioned, Bill, was sort of doing things that feel right to you. And at that moment, it felt right, it felt good. How do you go about finding that? Like, do you have something that feels right to you over the last 3 or 4 years that you've been doing? Or are you sort of still in that search?
I have a habit of bumping into these things. So the first novel I wrote was another one of those. I'm going to do this, you know, and a lot of people think, oh God, it's next to impossible to write a novel. Well, I come from a storytelling background, so I kind of know the arcs and things, that I got to pay attention to. But I bumped into the story and, what became very interested in the story as it was happening in front of my eyes. And then it just got to a point where I said, I'm gonna kind of fictionalize this in my mind and then I'm going to tell a couple of people this story and see how they respond. And when I told the story, people responded really well. And then I kind of went, right, I'm doing this. I'm gonna figure out how to block my life so that I can get at least 500 words done every single day. And when I was doing that 500, but some days I get 1500, but never below 500. Even if you write crap, right, you're going to write 500. Uh, and I knew when I was doing that, I had the same feeling. I just went, this is really great. I'm actually enjoying this. I don't, you hear of all these people, the writer's block and all this stuff in it. And I was like, I don't have that problem. Maybe I'm just writing crap, and they're writing really good stuff. But, I got to the end and, the book's gotten good reviews and so forth. So it turned out to be, a really rewarding experience. And then one of the other things is when I started doing these fishing videos with my buddy Steve, I just know when I'm on that river, I'm in the right place. You know what I mean? This is it. I never feel so grounded. That's kind of a weird metaphor. I never feel so grounded than when I'm on the river. I'm in a boat and we're just out there in the middle. I just go, wow, this is it. This just really makes me feel good. I'm in the right place. I'm enjoying it. I can close my eyes. I can breathe and I can just feel it. I go, whoa, this is great. So like I said, we're doing that twice a year now. going to these fishing camps, and I never lose the feeling. I mean, the travel is awful. You got to get on these flights and fly to Bogota, and you fly Bogota to the jungle town, then a jungle town. You take a boat for 6 hours up a river, then you get into an RV, not an RV, a 4x4, uh, and go another hour, and then you're back on it. I mean, it's horrible. But I get a night's sleep and I get up and I get in the boat and suddenly you're in that world and you just go, yeah, this is it. So for some reason, I don't seem to have too many problems running into things. And I have a term that I use with myself, which is float, you know. And what I mean by that is sometimes in life, it's okay just to float, right? Somebody said, "Hey, come with me to the basketball game." No, I don't want to go to the basketball game because I want to make a YouTube video and I want to make it, and I want to make it big. Okay, but sometimes just float. Just go to the basketball game. Just float. And then after the basketball game, these people they want to go to a restaurant and then they start talking and then you end up doing something. Just float, man. Just relax. Go with it. And then you come home and you go, "Wow, I got a really good idea for a YouTube video." So floating is great. Letting yourself go, letting yourself not be the captain of your own ship every once in a while, to let follow somebody else doing something and observe is a good way to bump into things that you ended up having a lot of passion for.
What's your advice on how people can float when they only have, say, 2 months of runway to cover their living expenses, rent, whatever it may be? But, the thing is, they've always had 2 months of runway and things have always just worked out fine. Yeah.
Well, one thing I tell people is that, you know, when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, let's take that trip to the beach this weekend," right? You're thinking, "Oh my God, I can't afford that. I'm barely making rent as it is now." Okay. What I like to say is go to the beach and trust me, in 10 years, you will only remember what you did at the beach, not how you stressed about the money. So sometimes you got to just, like I said, you got to float. You got to just let it go. I remember one time I was shooting a lot of stuff for Greenpeace, and this was before the YouTube channel. And I really loved, filming those guys because, they would do all these crazy things, hang banners and do all this kind of stuff. And I remember once they called me up and said, "We're doing this action tomorrow. Can you cover it?" And I'm thinking, you know, I only have $10 to my name. 10. It was the lowest point ever. But I'm going. So I went. And, I look back, I don't even remember how I survived, but I did, right? But I still had that great experience of, going with these wild and crazy guys and watching them to scaffold up the side of a ship and hang a banner off the side and shooting it and then getting over to the van and that they had Greenpeace had a little van. You bring your footage over there, and then they had a way of getting it out, so they could get all these tapes out to the news stations, and then the news stations would play all this stuff and it would raise awareness about these ecological issues. And you really felt good about participating in that. But I understand. I mean, it's very difficult when you're looking at your rent coming up and you don't have any idea how you're going to get it. But most of the time you're going to be okay. So floating doesn't have to be huge things. It could just be small things. I'm going to take the day off and go to the park. I want to look at dogs. Something that something that boils up inside of you. Pay attention to that.
Love that, Bill. How do you store all this amazing footage that you've probably collected over decades and decades? Are they just in hard drives? Do you have backups? Are they in the cloud? Yeah.
Well, when I was at my peak and I was making a lot of money off YouTube, I did make one big investment, and that is a server. And I can't show it to you. It's right here.
Is
You
it
see
a
it? Is it?
NAS? Is it the same as a NAS or is it different to a NAS?
Uh, I'm not that technical. It's network solutions, and it runs on a Ethernet into my main computer, and it's in its own little box here, which keeps it quiet. But the door's open right now, and it's got I think it's got about 8, 9 drives in it, and 48 terabytes of storage, and so it's hot all the time. So I could just dig up a real or fake show from 2012, and it's still in it. I edit in Final Cut Pro, so it'll still be a Final Cut Pro project. So
Wow.
I can I can just jump right in and oh, that soundtrack turned out to be a problem. Okay, I got to get rid of that. I'll put in a new soundtrack and do that and output it again and then save another copy over here to the so everything's on there. I had a bunch of drives in the beginning, but it just got crazy. I was doing screenshots of each drive, and then I had to open up the screenshot to see where stuff was. And then this network solutions somehow popped up on my radar. And, I called one of their salesmen and I was telling him my problem. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, we got this small server. It would be really good for you. It's RAID 5. It's, these, if any of the drives fail, you're okay. And you just pop it out. We give you a new one, pop it in, and it'll exist within that frame and work perfectly with your Mac. I'm on a Mac. So I work on a iMac Pro with an Intel chip. Uh, I work on Final Cut Pro exclusively, and I have this server as my backup.
I have server NAS. I think it's a similar thing as well, in my house, and it has like probably 3 decades worth of content. Like, photos my dad took when I was born and as a kid. I'm turning 27 now. I have old photos of my mum and dad before I was even born. But if the house burns down, I lose everything. Are you in the same dilemma?
No, not really, because I keep a lot of stuff in iCloud too. So I won't have the actual project files if this thing burned down, but I will have a finished copy.
Hmm.
So like the final output, I keep those in the cloud, and hopefully Apple won't burn down.
How many terabytes of cloud do you subscribe to on a monthly basis?
I forget, they keep upping it. So I think what am I? 10, I'm like 8, 9, 10. No, not terabytes, gigabytes. Because if I'm just showing if I just get up to an output, right? You're, no, wait a minute. Maybe I have this wrong. No, I think I'm 100, no, 200 gigabytes. That's what I got. Okay. I get mixed up with all these different platforms. And so I just do the actual output there. So I have some record of what was made. And if I lose the actual project, I mean, what am I going to do? Kind of thing.
You talked about your time in the Amazon. Something I've been seeing a lot on YouTube. I forgot his name, but the guy who runs Jungle Keepers, where he's sort of talking about how the Amazon has been being chopped down, and he released footage of uncontacted tribes. I don't know if you
Right.
saw that. Have you come over any similar stories in the Amazon? Is everything he's saying completely true because you've been there in person? What's happening in the Amazon?
Well, the Amazon's huge, first of all, and it covers many countries from, Peru and well, yeah, from Peru all the way east to the Atlantic Ocean. And that includes Guyana, French Guiana, Suriname, Venezuela, they all have pieces of it. And then in between, you got Bolivia, you have Colombia, and so different countries, you have different. stories going on. And Brazil is probably, I wouldn't say the worst, but it's the one where you have the most damage going on. Now, to Brazil's credit, they've put aside national parks because Brazil's whole strategy is to divvy it up. Okay, well, we'll give the you ranchers can have this. You Indians can have this. You rubber tappers can have this. And then we'll make this a national park where nobody can do anything to it, right? And if you look at satellite pictures, you'll see it's like the devastation running right up to the national park is just incredible. They mow everything down. So here's a funny fact. So Guyana, which is 1/20th of the size of the Brazil, right? If not a 1/100th, they have the biggest contiguous section of rainforest in South America.
Wow.
Brazil, as big as it is, it doesn't have as much rainforest before you hit a part where it's chopped up. And that's because Guyana, first of all, is very, very undeveloped. And second of all, some very large conservation groups got in there and gave Guyana, today it would be chump change, but I guess at the time seemed, huge. Again, like $285 million to create a conservation area in Guyana and let the indigenous people who live there basically manage it. And so they're the only ones that can hunt. They're the only ones that can really fish. I mean, up to a point, this was the ideal, but it did preserve huge sections of that country. You'll see the most pristine rainforest in the world in Guyana, right? There are sections of Brazil that have bigger trees and blah, 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 but you'll be chomping through there, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, it's a farm. And they're cutting down the trees. So there's a lot of truth to the destruction, that's going on. But like I said, it's different countries. It's just different stories. I mean, in Bolivia, you have some incredibly untouched areas. I mean, you feel like you're in the Garden of Eden. There are just so many animals. And somebody said, I showed them some pictures, and they said, "Oh my God, it's so good to know it's still there." And and you know what they meant by still there. It's like this, you know, natural world that we've altered as human beings so much, but that natural world, there's a section of it still there. And strangely enough, now this is just my opinion, but some of that is due to the fact that you have drug manufacturing going on in the jungle. And so people stay out, right? And then the fishermen kind of know you can go down this tributary, but don't go down that one, right? Because if you go down there, that's not good. That's where some narco guys are, right? And so there's something about that relationship that actually leaves some really good section of rainforest. So what I'm trying to tell you is I understand what he's saying, and the uncontacted tribes and all that kind of stuff. And it's there's still uncontacted tribes out there, but for the most part, at least across Brazil, the tribes are pretty familiar with the outside world. And I don't know if Jungle Keepers is telling you this, but at one point, the Brazilian government put satellite dishes in all the Indian villages and then started beaming television into like the men's house. Usually the village, they have the men's house. And they would beam and they set up a television and beam this footage into. So the Indians were very aware of the outside world. And now there's a campaign in Brazil where they're giving all the Indian villages Starlink so that the Indian villages now have high-speed internet.
Huh.
And they use it, I mean, especially the younger people. There was a long period of time when you'd see young people with phones, but the phones didn't work. They just liked having them, right? I think it's an anthropological term called cult cargo. And, they just see these things and they want it, right? Well, what does it do? I don't know. I just like it. So it was like that, but not anymore. Now they're all very sophisticated and they're watching videos and posting videos and making their own videos. It's pretty wild to see just a little putt-putt boat in the middle of nowhere, and then you'll see a Starlink antenna on the roof, and they basically have broadband internet. And the dark side of that is it's very disruptive to their culture because especially with young people, the young people will see this stuff on their phones and go, "Oh wow, what am I living here in this village in my shorts, man? I want to go to that town and live like those people do." So that's the dark side of it.
Wow. And how
Yeah.
about like I've seen, I guess this could be a real fake, but I've seen that they did LiDAR scans throughout the Amazon, and apparently there's like these pyramids or these structures throughout the Amazon. Is that real?
Oh, that I can't tell you. I've heard of this stuff and you, I don't know, you hear different people and we're going to do this and you should come and you should film it and we're going to find this. Well, there's also, I've heard people talking about dinosaurs deep in the jungle, right? And that uh, there are people, from the 1800s who were looking for the lost city of gold. And in their notebooks, they say, we found tracks from a T-Rex. So you still have people that are looking for that stuff, but they rarely find this stuff. And there's also the aliens, and 99% of those are all fake. I don't even know what that 1% is. I mean, I've never seen it, but I know that most of it's just fancy taxidermy, and they stitch this together. And they go, "Oh, look at it," kind of thing. So, the Amazon, the magic of the Amazon is the animals and the way of life of a jungle. If you become used to the rhythm of it, it's really pretty spectacular. That interconnection of everything, and this bird does this, and that animal does that, and that tree does this, and they all kind of work together. And if one of them dies, boom, immediately replaced by something else, that comes in. So
Wow. And when you were doing the real or fake series for that long, is there any examples of something that a lot of people think is mythical or think isn't real that you ended up proving or finding out it is real?
no.
No.
Everything, probably one of the bigger ones, like Mothman, right? And you can follow that. I mean, that's a difficult mystery. I was never able to say real or fake. I have another category called unknown. Like Mothman, there's just so many pieces of evidence that it's hard to discredit it. But on the other hand, there's no real evidence either, right? So you kind of leave it. But there are just so many things. If I found something that people said, "Is this real or fake?" It looks fake, but it's real. That made my month because 99% of it is just it's fake, you know. Is this real or fake? That's fake. Well, everything is fake. Well, I'm sorry, everything you send me is fake.
Is there an example that something ended up being real and it made your month? Is there any things that come to mind?
I'd have to look through my videos. It's been a while. I think some geological things, where people say, "Oh, there's this gigantic volcano under Yellowstone," and you're like, "Oh yeah, right." And you look it up, you go, "Oh yeah, there really is. There really, really is this like super volcano lurking just below the surface in Yellowstone." But when it comes to monsters and stuff like that, like the chupacabra, that's another one. Everybody reports seeing this, you know, dog-like animal, coyote type animal, and it's very mythic, and people have written books about it. But you'll never find any real evidence. It's just, oh, we found this, we found that, and Some people will turn in some hair or something they say they found, but it, turns out to be a dog. So I haven't I've never found a real monster other than monster fish.
What's monster fish?
Well, the largest freshwater fish, oh well, let me be more specific. The largest scaled freshwater fish in the world lives in the Amazon. It's called an arapaima.
Wow.
And you've been out fishing and you've caught some fish. Imagine getting one of these things on your line. It's over 10 feet and over 400 pounds.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Have you caught
they're they're
one
they're
of
they're
those?
huge. Huh?
Have you caught one of those?
No, I don't fish. I just take pictures. So I've been with the guy who caught one,
Wow.
and it's really, really an amazing fish. In fact, my second novel is about the arapaima. I'm doing kind of a Moby Dick of the Amazon, some people that go after this thing. And yeah, so that's an amazing fish. There's another one called the lau, and they call it freshwater fish, a freshwater shark, because it looks like a shark. It's got the big fin and everything. Man, these things are huge, 300 pounds, up to 300 pounds. You can catch them a lot smaller, but you get a big one on the line, and you're going to spend some time trying to get that fish in. It's big. And, if you look at my Amazon River Monsters series on my channel, you'll see there's one guy we followed. I mean, he was on that fish for 5 hours. It broke his rod, and he was so desperate. He was using Indian methods of putting river water in your mouth to make the fish come up.
Wow.
Yeah, no, yeah. There's some amazing fish, amazing.
With the gig that gets you out to the Amazon twice a year, is it filming promotional videos for tourists to come in and stay at these lodges? Is it like a tourist thing? How does that work?
No, it's a fishing thing. So there are fishermen in the world who would, I mean, their dream, their on their bucket list is to catch these big. They know about these fish. They read about them. They see the videos about them, and they want to go to the Amazon and catch one. And so the guy I film with is the host. So you sign up with him, and then he takes you as a group to a lodge that he knows. And then he's there to say, use this kind of hook, use this kind of line, do this, do that. And then they go, usually there could be 8 to 10 guys, and there's 2 men to a fishing boat. And each fishing boat has a local guide, usually from an Indian tribe. And they know these rivers, they know where the fish are. And my buddy will tech you up right, make sure you got the right gear. And these guys will go there, right? And you cast right there, right now. I see a fish right there. What? I don't see anything. Just cast. Wow, man. So it's a trip of a lifetime for a lot of people. It's pretty expensive. But there are fishermen in the world who will pay just about anything to catch these fish.
The promotional videos you film for the host, do they go on his YouTube channel? Or how do...
Uh, he has his own website and he puts them on Facebook, where he has I'm not sure whether it's a group or not, but that's where the his biggest following is. And so he can put those things on there. And then the lodge also benefits by the fact that when people sign up with him, it's to say, we're going to take you to this lodge. And this is what the lodge looks like. This is what the rooms look like. This is what the food's like. This is what the boats are like. This is what the guides are like. You get to see everything because you're like, oh, I'm going to go, you know, I'm going to go in the middle of the Amazon. It's like do you sleep on the ground? Under a mosquito net. And these videos, they say, no, it's a little, it's out there, right? I mean, you're gonna fly in a small plane and land in the river 2 hours into the jungle. But when you get out, there's going to be a building and there's going to be a cook and there's a table with food. And one of the strange things is the fishermen are hardly ever allowed to eat the fish. you have to put them back. It's catch and release. You catch it, put it back, catch it, put it back. Don't catch it, take it back and say, I'm going to have this for dinner. No, you can't do that. Only the guides who are the Indian guides can do that. If they like a fish you caught, they'll go, here, give me that fish. I'm going to take this home. So they're always eating at dinner. You see them eating, oh, this gorgeous peacock bass, all this great stuff. And we're over there eating rice and potatoes. So, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. A lot of beer, a lot of rum, you know. It's a great vacation, great getaway, and a great sport for people who love fishing.
And Bill, when you're filming these videos, do you also edit them for the host and do you send them like the finished edit videos? And then does it get repetitive if you're doing it twice a year for the last 5 years? Do all the videos end up looking the same?
Yeah, they have a formula, and we probably over the first couple of years kind of developed the formula. And the formula is pretty advanced at this point, and it's okay because you're just trying to communicate what the experience is like. And you kind of learn where the beats are, and what people are interested in. And, they just want to know certain things. And so I know when I go in that I've got to cover certain things. I know my host, the guy I fish with, if you're saying there's 4 fish to catch here, you have to catch every one of them. And I have to get it on camera, right? So he's under pressure to get the fish. And then I'm under pressure to make sure I've got all those shots I need to tell that story when I get back. But yeah, it's basically, he does an introduction. This is a great trip. And if you're looking for this, you're going to come here. And then, we're going to go to our drone footage and show the area. And then my voiceover is going to come in. I do all the editing. I do the voiceover. I write the scripts and then fill in all the blanks for him. And then I interview him while we're in the jungle on some of the different aspects of the trip. And so he covers some of it, and then whatever he covers and he does it successfully, he'll get in. But if it doesn't work out, I just replace it with voiceover. And then we add some music and a lot of action shots and things like that, and it works. I mean, people see it and they go, "Oh, yeah, okay, great, I'll go."
That's so cool. In the promotional video, do you put like the pricing and how long, or is that like just contact us if you're interested?
Yeah, just contact us.
Makes sense.
It's basically the call to action comes at the end and go, so are you going to just dream about fishing or are you going to really fish? Here's the contact. Get in touch. Stop dreaming and start fishing, kind of thing. And then, he's got a good clientele. He's a good host. And so the clientele's been building up over the years. It was pretty small when we started, but now it's pretty substantial.
Wow. And then Bill, I guess, yeah, what's your plan for 2026? Is it writing that second novel, the Moby Dick of the Amazon, the monster fish? What's the plan for the rest of the year?
Well, I'm starting my third novel. And so I'm hoping to be able to do the third novel and then do some YouTube videos just for fun, some real or fakes or, maybe something else I bump into. And if there's some outside doc work, depending on what it is, I might take it. I have a few people that come to me and I go, I'm working on this. Sometimes I go, yeah, that sounds cool. I'll do it. Other times I'm like, nah. I'm going to spend the time on the book kind of thing. So I'm really excited about the book. It's my third outing, and I'm going to do, it's more or less a memoir set in the Amazon of one of my most extreme trips ever there. It was just off the charts, traveled with, basically unacculturated Indians for 10 days on their boat back up into their village and all these things happen, it's quite the story. So I'm really looking forward to writing it, because yeah, I love the Amazon and I love the people there and it's one of my favorite places. So I decided, it's one of those things. It's like I'm not trying to build a career, I just like maybe I should be writing, fantasy, romance, for the business. But no, this is what's here. I want to write that thing. And most of the time it turns out to be okay. It's like this thing. I made this myself. I paid for it, the whole thing. And it was just like, I'm going to do this because I met her and she was talking about documentary and I just said, I'll tell you what, let's spend one day together. Like we're making the movie. I'll just follow you around. I'm going to do all this stuff. And man, what I saw that day with her and the charisma and what I call TVQ, she's just got such a great presence on camera. I was like, doing this. I'm doing this. We're doing this. And she turned out to be a great partner, protected me all the way. When the bigger media companies started coming in, as she became more famous, she stood by me like a rock. And, it's just one of those things. So the fact that I just said, I'm doing this because this is what I have a passion for. This feels right. This is what I should be doing. And I just did it and put a lot of money into it, but it paid off. It's like I said, it's one of my more successful documentaries.
Wow. Bill, when you independently produce a documentary like that, when like say Channel 4 gets it, are you selling the rights to them? Does Channel 4 own it? Are you licensing it out to them? How does that work? Who owns the film?
It can work a lot of different ways. I would say probably the most common way is you go through a distributor and you sell off licensing rights for territories. Like a company will come in and say, we want to license Pussycat Preacher for US and Canada, right? And then so your distributor will set a price and then you get paid off of that. And then the distributor will go to Europe and say, well, the American rights, this film, American rights are already sold. I can get you France, Germany, Spain, England, Holland, and I got a great price for it. That's what they do. They sell it. In the case of Pussycat Preacher, it was really amazing because she was absolutely nobody, unknown when we started. And in the middle of filming, I think one of the TV stations came in and did a news piece on her. And man, she just blew up. She was on every talk show. She was she was a media darling, sending limos over to her house, taking her into the television stations to do these interviews, all over newspaper. She had a website, it was crashing because there were so many people. And I was right there in the middle of it to record it as all this was happening to her, kind of thing. And we had an agreement. Our agreement was I'm going to be basically putting years of my life and my money into this movie, and I can't have you walk out in the middle and go with somebody else, right? So here's our deal. You can do whatever you want with anybody up to 10 minutes, but over 10 minutes to feature length is exclusively me, right? That's my territory. So she was like, yeah, okay, perfect. Right. And then HBO came in and HBO said, well, who's that guy? You'll get rid of that guy. We want to make a movie with you. And she goes, no, I made a deal with him.
Hmm.
And that's what I said. She was a great business partner. She just stuck by me the whole way. We were getting towards the end and I think I had a rough cut and Channel 4 called her and said, we heard about you. We want to make a documentary about you. And she goes, well, that's funny you should ask because my friend Bill is already making a documentary about me. Well, it's probably non-exclusive. We'll just, no, 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 it's exclusive. My deal with him is exclusive. So he told me to tell you that if you're interested to call him.
Hmm.
And so Channel 4 called me and they said, we're interested in this project. Where are you at? I said, I got a rough cut I can show you. If you want to look at it now, I mean, what are you looking at? You want to license it? No, no, no. We want to brand it. We want to make it our own. It's going to be a Channel 4 production, like we made it.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, I didn't know what that meant in terms of creative control. But I sent them the rough cut and they got back to me and they said, we like the show and we want to proceed. Although your American style editing is too fast, we want to slow it down. The English market is slower. And so if you don't mind, we're going to send a guy over to where you are. And then he'll work with you in terms of, slowing it down and making it more British, you know, type of thing. And we had a lot of funny beats, along the line. But he was a really nice guy. We worked really well together. And so we finished it up. The commissioning editor approved it and it became a Channel 4 production and they paid a good price to make that their own movie. And they called it the Holy Hottie, but I retained the DVD rights under Pussycat Preacher, and so I was able to do whatever I wanted to do with the DVD. I just had to stay out of broadcast. I couldn't do broadcast with it, type of thing. So it worked out. I mean, there you go. I'm going to do this, and then I ended up, basically making a Channel 4 documentary.
Wow.
So if you look at it today, it will say a Channel 4 production. I was like, okay, whatever. I mean, my name's still on it as producer director, but it just doesn't have my company name on it.
And then right now, if it sells on Amazon, you get 100% of it because you own this DVD rights.
Yeah, I own the DVD rights, but Amazon, they take their cut
Hmm.
off of it. And the problem with Amazon is they set the prices.
Oh.
So they just go, oh, wait, we decided this week we're going to sell it for 9.95. Oh, okay. What am I going to do, kind of thing. But the fact that it's still out there, I mean, for me is, it's a lot of fun. And the girl that's in it, she's changed quite a bit, but she's kind of proud of it, kind of thing. And we still talk, kind of thing. So
It's beautiful. What's been your view with the novels you've been writing? I know you've been just writing from the heart. You've been doing it for fun. So I guess it's not really a career play or like you're not trying to make a living out of writing novels. Is that the case?
yeah, no, I decided that I wouldn't do that because if I was going to try to become a professional writer, what I really needed to do is go and start by doing some genre pieces, stuff that's popular in the market. And you go, oh, I got to write a crime. Well, I really don't like crime, you know? Well, romance is the biggest selling. Well, me, right? I don't think so. I really don't like fantasy. I said, look, oh, fuck it. I'm going to just call it a hobby. And if something happens, that's good. Because, I'm at an age where, I'm pretty much set. I'm just trying to find things to keep my creative juices going and feel like I'm accomplishing something and I'm not irrelevant, I guess.
I love that. Bill, one of the last questions I want to ask, what's any final advice for someone like myself that is trying to do what they love, pursue their dream, but financially things are rough. They're trying to make rent each month to month. They're constantly pulled towards doing the thing that makes money versus doing what they love. I guess what's your macro advice having gone through so many decades of life?
Well, like I said, I mean, you got to have the courage to float sometimes, and not and kind of be irresponsible almost, but to a small degree. You can't be irresponsible to the point where you're going to destroy yourself. You got to kind of use your own judgment. But there are those calls. It's like, when Greenpeace said, hey, you want to do this thing? And I only had $10 in my name, no rent money, but I went with them, right? And I spent a few days filming with them and I'm going, this is insane. What am I doing? But it turned out to be a great thing because I look back now and I go, I don't know how I paid the rent that month, but so, somehow I did. But on the other hand, on the more practical level, if you're caught between this thing of making money and doing what you love, if you can find something that's close to it, you know, it's like I always like making documentaries and and developing fictional projects, that might make a Hollywood movie. But my skill gig, and maybe I should make more of this, saying you need that one skill that you can make money off of, right? And so my skill was always, I don't know how to say this, news cameraman. And for some reason, I could always pick up gigs doing that. So I lived in LA back in my impoverished days, and I could pick up work from European news organizations who are coming to Hollywood to do celebrity stories, right? And so I got a few days here and a few days there. And then I'd have 3 weeks with no work. And then during that 3 weeks, I would be doing my own thing. And, then the phone would ring and we would take other things. One funny story I can tell you is that at the height of my impoverishment in LA, just coming out of film school, me and a couple other guys were living in an office building.
Hmm.
And we didn't live in the same office. We all had separate offices. But there was no bathroom. There was no, you had to go down the hall, but you know what it's like. There's no shower or anything like that. So we're living in these offices for nothing. We were dirt poor. And when a guy came along and said, we have a gig in Nicaragua, shooting news for CBS, and it was in the middle of the time when there was a war going on there with the Sandinistas and the what do they call those guys? The Frente. Vamos al frente con el frente. I can't remember the name of the group now. It was a long time ago. But our first question was like, "Oh, you want us to work there?" Yeah. Okay. So we're going to get rooms? Yeah. Do the rooms have bathrooms? Yeah. Okay, we're there. Right. It was that crazy. We took the gig because the living standard was a little bit higher than this struggle that we were going through. But, we figured out how to do it. We got cheap membership to the gym nearby. And so that became your place to shower and do all this stuff. And you adapt and you suffer for your art, I guess is one way to say it. I'm not saying I do art, but you suffer for your gig, what you want to do. And then the last thing I would say is when you're trying to balance these two things, discipline becomes extremely important. So even if you got a day gig, but you have this other creative project, and you could squeeze that project in between 5 and 7 in the morning, you got to get up every single day at 5, make that your habit, and then have a quota like I do when I write. My quota is 500. You got to write 500 every day. Yeah, sure, there's days you got to go to the doctor or whatever, but 99% of the time, that 5 to 7 in the morning is when you're doing your own creative work. Then you go off and use your skills or whatever your job is to make the money. And that's why you need the discipline to do that. And it's very hard for some people. I know that. It's not hard for me because I know that if I can survive the first week, that the habit has been formed, right? I know that getting up, I'm going to be there from 5 till 7. Those aren't my hours, but let's just say I'm going to be there from 5 to 7. And after I'm doing that for a week, it just feels really normal, right? And when I break that habit, it's like, oh, what, my habit's broken, you know. So it's like building this behavioral habit by doing it every day. And making sure that when you're doing it, you reward yourself with whatever you want. If you like chocolate milkshakes, make sure to get yourself, have a chocolate milkshake ready to go at 6 a.m.
Hmm.
because that's your treat. So a reward. You need a reward. You can't just beat the crap out of yourself every day and think you're going to continue. No, you need rewards. So I don't know whether that's food, whether that's something to do with a personal relationship, something physical, but a hot tub, a steam room, whatever, a hot shower, something to reward yourself within this habit of, you know, really regimenting your life to get through this period that you're in. Because eventually you're going to finish that creative project. It's going to feel like, oh my God, I'm just like getting an inch a day. Well, 10 days, 12 days is a foot,
Mm.
right? And you did it. And then when you get to that foot, you go, oh, I am accomplishing something. Okay, I'll keep going. And it'll seem like if you got, especially got a long project like a novel, it just seems like, oh my God, when is this going to end? Right? But you just keep going, and then one day you go, holy crap, I'm 2 chapters from the end of this thing. And then you start to feel this energy coming on because you can see the finish line, and that energy is going to power you right through to the end. But those early days, that first week is rough. It's all about habit, 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 habit. That alarm goes off at 4:45 every morning. Every morning at 4:45, I got to stand up. That's all I got to do. All right, just stand up. Second day, stand up, make it to the bathroom. Third day, stand up, make it to the bathroom, go to the kitchen. And by the time you get to 7 days, you'll be doing it. Trust me, it works. I use it.
And Bill, what about people, for example, like myself, where when I was 18, I was getting into the online marketing space, e-commerce, and everything I touched, whether it was YouTube, consulting, everything was just making money. And then obviously what goes up goes down, and you sort of go through a dry spell of 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you start questioning, like, hey, do I have this? Do I have to go get a job? I start questioning if I remember how bullish and how overconfident I was. I felt like I could do anything. And I just saw that confidence just slowly dip as things just, I don't know, maybe the economy is getting harder. What's your thoughts on people that have gotten those big wins and that really shifts their baseline?
Well, I mean, everything's going to have ups and it's going to have downs, right? So when you have those downs and you have to go get a job, you go get a job. That's what you do. And you feel like shit, you're right. You're like, I'm a loser. I got to do this job. No, no. The sun will be out again. Just you're in a rough patch, and keep your creative. Yeah, okay. I had to pick up a job as an Uber driver. Okay, that's what you had to do. But that doesn't mean I'm going to drive between 5 and 7. I'm going to do that other thing that I want to do during these hours. I'm not just saying it has to be between 5 and 7. It could be, 12 to 3 in the afternoon. Whatever works for you, 11 to 2. Go to bed at 6, wake up at 11, and then work until 3. Whatever works. But, if you're hitting a rough patch and you got to do it, I've hit that many, many times, where things are going great and all of a sudden, man, I'm shooting weddings. And there's no worse feeling in the world that, you've had this career, you shot in war zones. I've worked for National Geographic. I've worked for all the news networks, and I'm shooting a freaking wedding. How did I get here? And they're treating you like crap, like you're the dog at the front door, but you just power through it. You're like, okay. And then the phone rings or something happens and you climb out of that space. I've gone through that so many times, it's ridiculous. Just, you're flying high and then bam, I don't know what happened. Everything dried up. Okay, well, I got to do what I got to do. You got time, you're young.
Yeah. So I guess what's the takeaway? You've been through that cycle so many times. Is it now that you just know it's going to happen, it's normal, and that eventually it's going to come back up, and you're sort of so self-aware because you've been through it multiple times? What would your advice be?
Well, my advice would be to check your drive. You know, I mean, if you hit a dry spot and then you got to take a job or something, you got to work in a restaurant, you got to be a waiter or a food delivery guy, and you lost your drive, you're in trouble, right? But if you're riding that bike and delivering food, but there's a part of your brain that's still out there, still dreaming. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Then you're going to get out of it. If you lose your drive, if you lose your passion, yeah, you could just end up being permanently in a ditch. So I guess it always comes back to the same thing. You just got to have that fire in you somewhere that even on your worst days, you love that consulting, or you love teaching, or creating, or that thing you love has to be alive. It has to be on fire somewhere. Even if it's a little teeny flame, that's the only thing that's left, but it's still there.
Hmm.
Then, you can plot your way out of these, soft patches. And also kind of have this, I guess, belief. It's not really a faith, but a belief that it's going to get better. I'm not going to end up doing wedding videos the rest of my life, because I hate it too much. It's just god awful, just terrible. And not to put down wedding photographers, for me, it's like just no, I belong out on the river. I belong, cooking up my own documentaries. That's where I belong. I don't belong here. I'm sure there's a lot of wedding photographers that are happy to be there, but me, no.
Bill, did that up and down, does it stop? Does it end? I guess it must have, like, you've sort of eventually built a foundation where that is no longer a worry or possibility for you to get there again, right? To become a, you're not going to become a wedding
Yeah, I think
photographer.
the valleys are less deep, you know. Hopefully the mountaintops are higher. And, when you hit those valleys, you're not going all the way down. You can, not saying you can. I mean, there are a lot of people that, screw up in life and just end up in the worst possible circumstances. But, somebody who is, you know, basically has a positive outlook on life over the years, you gradually that base below you, it's like a stair step. It just keeps, the bottom's here, and then the bottom's here, and then the bottom's here, and then pretty soon, you're okay.
Hmm. At what age did you feel or get to that place where I was like, oh, no matter how bad things get, I'm going to be okay?
I I have to say for myself, I never thought that way, when I was young and naive. I think I can look back now and be a little more philosophical about it. But when I was young and going through these things, I really didn't think about it that much. You know what I mean? Maybe stupidly. And I just had something in me, like I said, that little fire where I always saw a brighter future ahead. I didn't see the end of the world. So I think just, having that positive, I have a built-in positive attitude. So I think that, will get you through a lot. Just got to hang in there.
I love that, Bill. Last two questions, I usually wrap this up with all my interview guests. One, what's the last or any recent things you've added to your day-to-day routine?
Um, well, I don't think it's adding things. My routines are pretty well established. Now it's a question of adapting my routines. So exercise is a huge component of my life. I like to exercise one way or another every day. Swimming is a huge thing for me, not in pools, in oceans, right? And so if I do, it's not that I'm doing anything new, it's just that I find a new way to do it. I find a new routine, so I've got this routine now, like when I'm coming back from South America, and especially if it's winter, I'm going to spend an extra day in Miami because most of the flights come into Miami and then I fly from Miami. I'm going to spend an extra day there. You know why? Because I know where a bike rental shop is. I know the guy there. They have a huge biking path along Miami Beach, and they have warm water that I can swim in, right? So I'm just kind of adapting what I do because that's what I do everywhere I go. I just look for the bike or look for the gym and look for the water, right? That's it. I haven't come up with anything new beyond that in a long time, just because that's what does it for me. And then when I'm at home in New Jersey, I mix it up with yard work so that the yard work becomes a different kind of exercise that can replace the other exercise kind of thing. It's just exercise is a huge component of my life every day. Sometimes it's first thing in the morning, sometimes it's middle of the day, sometimes it's even in the evening, depending on, what I'm doing with my routine. But that exercise just really keeps me balanced, keeps me feeling good, makes me feel healthy, keeps my appetite and everything, in good shape. And so that might also have something to do with, you know, keeping your life on a positive path and your YouTube channel.
Hmm. And as a creative, when you wake up, is it just straight to work? Straight to writing?
It depends. It depends. When I have a routine, I don't know if you want to know, it's pretty boring. My routine when I'm in the heart of a novel is I get up and I don't really eat anything because I find eating, it slows me down for some reason. When I'm trying to write, it's not good because I guess the blood's going to my stomach or whatever. So, do you really want to hear this? It's really boring.
I'm curious, yeah.
All right. So I'm in the heart of writing. I get up and I just, kind of get myself together and I get my riding clothes on for bike riding.
Okay.
Then I have a knapsack with my laptop and I take my bike and I put it on the back of the car because I have a beach national park with a bike path really close to me. And I go to a parking lot on the bay on the New York Harbor because we face New York City. So, but it's pretty rural. So there's this place where you can pull right up to the water. And it's not a parking lot. Nobody's there. Nobody's going to hassle you. Really super low key. And that's where I'll do my writing session. And I'll try to go 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
In the car
And I,
or out on
yeah,
the
in the car. I literally sit in the car.
bed?
But I'm on the water. It's very quiet, no distractions. I just find it to be a really great place to write. In my office, too full of distractions, and I got to do this, I got to do that. So I just do that, and when I'm done with that, then I go for a bike ride
Hmm.
and eat. I bring a little bit of food, like a banana or something like that, and then after I finish that writing session, I'll eat. Give myself a reward, right? Oh yeah, I can't wait for that banana, man. And then I'll go for the ride, and the ride is really great, just mellows my body out and everything. And then I'm back home by 10, 11 a.m. And then I'm ready to go on whatever else I got in my world, like I'm cutting a fishing video or working on another documentary or other business I got to take care of. That's the rest of the day, like that. So that's it.
That's beautiful.
That's
I
my
like that.
little routine.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked you to break that down. That's very cool. I really like how you have the first thing you sort of get yourself out to nature, then you sort of spend your time riding, you reward yourself with the food and the bike ride. Everything is intentionally placed in that specific order.
Right, right. Now that can change, as I get later in the novel and I get into the editing process, I need the bigger screen at home. So I'll write at home and then go and then leave.
I
So it's
see.
constantly changing.
Got it. Bill, last question I usually always wrap this up with is any personal goals for the next 6 months that isn't work related?
Um, I my wife and I are coming up on a sort of a milestone anniversary, and we're hoping to put together a big party in Mexico that people will come to. So yeah, that's something that's not work related
How
that I
many
can tell you
years?
about.
How many years?
Oh, that we've been we're on our 30th anniversary.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, we've been married a long time.
What's the secret for such a long lasting marriage, especially when, as a creative, you're going through ups and downs financially, life wise? How have you sustained a 30-year long beautiful marriage?
Uh, I think with a sense of humor and a man cave. Where I'm sitting right now is my office man cave. It is a separate building from the normal house. So, so I have that. And then, my wife is very relaxed and gives me a lot of space, because I'm kind of this independent, I'm very independent kind of person, just doing my thing, as opposed to working for somebody. So she gives me a lot of space. And also she's had a career in business and so she provides a lot of stability because, not that I since I've been married to her have I had to depend on her, but that stability is a nice thing to have too. It really helps you uh, get through the years. And then I think, building things together. We built a lot together. These investments I'm talking about, those are things that we do together. The home investments, the condo investments, all that. So we really built something. And that's a lot of glue there, for that kind of thing. So
Any advice when it comes to
that's all I
finding?
can tell you. Huh?
Any advice when it comes to finding a partner?
Oh, finding a partner?
Yeah.
No, dude, that's why I don't write romance novels. I'm just like, yeah, it just happens. I mean, you got to be, I mean, if you really want a partner, I mean, you got to be out there. So, I mean, I didn't grow up in online dating era, but the people I see who do it, you know, you meet a lot of interesting people and, it's not like, first time I go out, oh my God, is this going to be the person I'm going to marry? Just like, okay, you're an interesting person, don't be in a rush, kind of thing. So, why you got any hot prospects out there?
I think I know what I'm looking for, and I think it's just like a matter of time. I do feel like that person that ideally I'd like to be with like a friend, like a best friend. I'd like to marry and just be with someone that I
Yeah.
just enjoy spending time with, and that's not something I've found yet. I have a lot of sort of female friends that that are friends that we catch up every few weeks or on a weekly basis if we're really close, but I'd really like to meet someone that I can spend every day with, and I think I haven't found that yet.
Right. Well, I mean, if you're looking, you're looking. If you're not looking, you're dependent on fate,
Mm.
you know, that somebody's going to bump into you. Or you're going to be like, no, I'm going to, I got to look. I got to be out there looking. So I'm on this dating platform and I'm talking to friends and I'm getting introduced to girls. You know, so there's two sides of the coin. Fate can take care of it for you, or you're going to take care of it yourself.
Mm. Thank you so much. What's your thoughts on faith? Are you a religious person? I know you sort of naturally are positive. What's your thoughts on faith, Bill?
Well, I have to say that I am pretty much an atheist.
Hmm?
I was raised Catholic. I did, what, 12 years of Catholic school or something, I mean, uh, and so there's a lot of that that's in me, but I pretty much rejected it from day one. Like these women in strange dresses are telling me I have a black mark inside here or something. What? What? You know, the real or fake guy, right? Kind of thing. And then I think over the years, because my traveling is pretty extensive and I've visited a lot of cultures, and so I kind of, understand, the bigger picture, the cosmology of different cultures, and this need to explain ourselves to ourselves. Who are we? Why are we here? Kind of things. And I've been in with Indian tribes, middle of the jungle, and you're trying to figure out what's your faith. And they start telling you things like, well, you see the bright lights in the sky? Yeah. That's how the white man got here,
The
right?
white man.
Yeah, the white man came through those holes.
Wow.
Well, I mean, it goes to show you that what you believe in has a lot to do with your environment, and every culture has a need to explain itself to itself. But as far as there being a single God who is conscious of putting this earth together in 7 days, and I don't believe in that. I don't think that's correct. So maybe you could call me agnostic. There is a mystery to the life force, but I think every culture just explains it to themselves differently, and nobody really knows. Okay, that's about it. That's about as far as I can go.
Yeah, because I was wondering, with your experience traveling all over the world and seeing so many different cultures, reading Joseph Campbell's book on Heroes Up with a Thousand Faces, he talks about the similarities of all the different cultures and the through line on what they all believe in. You probably must have seen some through line on what people in opposite sides of the world somehow uniquely believe in simultaneously.
Yeah, I mean, I read, Hero with a Thousand Faces, and I understand where, Joseph Campbell is coming from. And I think, yeah, I mean, the problem is that, I mean, for me, it's not a problem, but my observation in my travels, and some of my travels are very route, like going around the world in 2 weeks and making stops and then, stop and then do it again, only you're going the other way around. And so you when you're doing it like that, you're just popping into these realities. So when you drop into Bangkok, it's got its own reality, right? Drop into America, it's got its own reality. You drop into Buenos Aires, it's got its own. And what I'm saying by reality is they, everything about them, the way they dress, the way they look, the way they talk, what they believe in, is what they developed around themselves to create a reality because we're born blank. We have no built-in explanation of who we are and why we're here. And so that all has to be filled in. And that's why within a particular region, you will see a culture develop and have a certain set of beliefs and so forth. Now, there's something about I think, the unconscious mind of humans that we we gravitate towards the same story,
Mm.
So to explain this special person with a higher consciousness than ourselves, we like to think of this person as born magically, you know, like Jesus was born magically because his parents, if I still have this right, they didn't really have sex. He was an immaculate conception.
Mm.
And then you have others, I think it's Muhammad, where he's in a basket on a river. You don't have that lineage before him. And that's what Campbell's pointing out, that it's something about the unconscious that creates that myth in us of this special individual, whether he's Jesus, whether he's Buddha, whether he's Muhammad, some of these other characters. If you look at their stories, there's similarities in the stories type of thing. And then that's how he gets back to Hero in a Thousand Faces. And I really believe that, from my travels, seeing all these different manifestations of a manufactured reality around ourselves, right? It's like if you visit with orangutans, their reality is their reality. You go anywhere in the world, I mean, orangutans are pretty much in one area, but if you go around the world looking at great apes, they're all going to be the same. They don't differentiate very much other than for physical environmental needs from one group to the other. But when it comes to humans, it's like we dress different, we speak different languages, we believe in different things, we eat different foods because we need to manufacture, our brains are bigger. We need to manufacture a reality for ourselves, type of thing. So that makes it very difficult to believe at the same time in one religion, in a single God, because everybody's got a God, right? So you just have to write it off. I mean, for me, it's like, okay, there's a life force in the universe. I don't know what it is, but it's certainly not this, and it's not that. This kind of tries to express that mystery, and it's successful to a lot of people. But if you're looking at them all together, then you go, well, one's just as good as the other. So that kind of makes me an atheist because I don't believe particularly in that one any more than I believe in that one. But I understand what they're trying to express. And that's all I can say about it. I mean,
I love that, Bill. Bill, where can our audience get more of you?
well, they can, they can watch my YouTube channel if you like. I can give you a link to my book, the one that's out now. And there's one that's ready to go, but I'm trying to go more publishing world on this one. The first one was self-published, so that's going to take longer to get out. Uh, or you can write me, billschannel@gmail.com. I will answer your questions.
I love that. Good question. Out of curiosity, what made you want to take the publishing route for your second novel?
Because I discovered I have no energy for marketing books.
Hmm.
It's a very, very time consuming and energy draining activity that I don't enjoy at all.
Hmm.
I want to get on to the next book. So I did self-publishing, obviously did the marketing I did was like it was ridiculous. I was like, okay, I'm done. It's just there. Somebody wants to read it, okay, it's fine. But oh, one thing that I'm kind of enjoying right now is I took the first book and I made it's not really a book trailer. It's almost like a movie of the book using AI.
Hmm.
And I found that to be a lot of fun.
Whoa.
Yeah, just these characters that you lived with and they're in the book and everything. And now I'm going to create these characters and I'm going to create these scenes and like how I envisioned it. And I had so much fun doing it. I just enjoyed it so much. I spent like a month on it, but it was a lot of fun. And it's on my channel. You can check it out.
What were you
It's I'll
using?
I'll send you the link to it.
What
I
tools?
I signed up for, how did I do this? Two. I got the free, whatever it is, introductory thing on Gemini.
Hmm.
So I was Gemini Pro, I think. And then that gave me Nano Banana.
Hmm.
And I created stills
Yes.
with the Nano Banana. And then I signed up for Hygen, Hygen. And in Hygen, I was animating the still pictures. The big problem is consistent characters. We don't want to get into a whole new thing, but you create the still and you find that AI caricature that looks like the character you got in your head. And then you build a style sheet. You get that character in front, side, back, blah, blah, blah. Right. And then once you get all that together, then you can go over to Hygen and say, take this character, and they're in a room. This character is la 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 la. And then gradually you figure it out, right? I mean, it's still really clunky, but I could see, a guy sitting in his garage making an entire movie. And I think I would like to do that. As crazy as that sounds. So I have a 15-minute version of that book that I put together and put it on my YouTube channel. And of course, my audience, they're all going, "Oh yeah, that's great, Bill. When are you going to make a real or fake?" But it was fun. I mean, it got like 5,000 views or something like that. And for me, I'm like, that's 5,000 people that heard that story, and that's good. And I like that. And it actually sold a few copies of the book.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Through a
So
tracking
so
link.
I would, hmm?
Through like a tracking link, you were able to see how many people went to the link through that video. through like a
No, I
trend?
can see by the like zero sales, then it goes like to 10.
Ah, wow.
And right when I released the video, you can see, oh wow, people went over and actually bought the book. And then yeah, I could see in the comments, people say, yeah, I bought a copy, right? Yeah, yeah, it's okay. Kind of thing. But it's like hell of a lot of fun. God, I enjoyed doing that. That was my most fun project in the last year that I did. So I would like to expand out on that. And now I'm thinking about memoir, and the applications of that in memoir they're mind blowing because you're writing a memoir and you've got a picture from your childhood. You can animate that now, bring that to life, and that's a real picture,
Mm.
right? Inside of a memoir. And you're like, whoa, I mean, for me, that's what's intriguing me now is I would love to get these pictures that I have of this epic. I only have pictures. I have a couple of little teeny clips of video, but I would love to take the pictures and then animate the real characters into scenes that it's like, it's mind blowing. It's just mind blowing.
We'll link the 15-minute trailer below. I'll find it from your channel. Um, yeah, thank you so much for your time today, Bill. I love the value you share. There's so much wisdom, there's so much experience. You've been through the gamut. So thank you so much for taking the time to just share that with the audience today.
Sure. Sure. This has just been a lot of fun for me. I really enjoyed talking to you. I can tell you're very thoughtful and you contemplate everything and you're a thinker. So it's really been enjoyable for me.
No, thank you, Bill. Guys, if you've made it this far, please let me know your thoughts. Hope you guys got a ton of value, and I'll see you guys next week on another episode of the podcast. Peace.